Heute heißt es mal wieder Jesse in Gefahr. Wir sind in den USA gemeinsam mit Toyota und Lexus und werden erstmal eine Toyota Supra autonom driften. Was das bedeutet und wie das funktioniert, werdet ihr in diesem Video sehen. Und auch einen Lexus LC500 auf einer Rennstrecke mit fast 100 Miles per Hour fahren, inklusive Hindernisse. Ich habe total Schiss. Ich hoffe, ihr habt Bock und würde sagen, ihr kommt jetzt einfach mal mit. Zuerst fahren wir jetzt hier auf der Rennstrecke autonom. Komische Vorstellung, vor allem werden wir bis zu 150 km/h unterwegs sein. Es wird zwar ein Fahrer jetzt gleich eben am Lenkrad sitzen, aber er wird es nicht bewegen, sondern das Auto tut es eben von selbst. Für mich ist der Lexus LC500 eines der schönsten Coupés ever. Übrigens findet ihr den auch bei uns hier auf dem Kanal im Review, also schaut da gerne mal vorbei. Breiter Arsch, hinten auch noch mal richtig schön eben Spoiler, der rausfährt, aber hier im Kofferraum steckt quasi das Brain und das zeige ich euch jetzt hier noch schnell. Da ist es nämlich ganz viel Technik, ganz viel Rechenzentrum, aber jetzt würde ich vorschlagen, wir sprechen noch darüber, was noch auf der Rennstrecke passieren wird. Der wird nämlich nicht nur schnell fahren, sondern da hinten seht ihr auch noch ein Hindernis und ich bin gespannt und ich hoffe auch, dass der gleich bei der Fahrt ja ausweichen wird und ich gucke jetzt auch mal, ob ich es treffe. Wir sitzen jetzt im Lexus LC500. Wir fahren jetzt 2 Runden komplett autonom. Hier vorne ist ein extra Screen mit dabei und das Auto wird von sich aus Hindernisse erkennen und denen auch ausweichen. Und es wird es auch viel ruhiger machen als ein Mensch, der normalerweise eben Panik bekommt in solchen Situationen. Und ich bin jetzt sehr gespannt, wie es wird. I'm ready.
Ready? Cool.
Als nächstes, und das habe ich noch nie vor dem heutigen Tag gehört, driften wir autonom. Wie das funktionieren soll, da bin ich sehr gespannt. Aber wir werden auf jeden Fall gleich Platz nehmen hier in dieser super schönen Toyota Supra. Das ist aber keine normale Toyota Supra. Die hier hat jetzt 750 PS Heckantrieb und von der gibt es nur 2 Stück auf der Welt. Nicht nur, weil sie autonom eben driften kann, sondern weil sie auch ziemlich getuned ist. Ihr seht, sehr breite Radkästen jetzt hier, total tief gelegt, Aero-Kit drauf und vor allem ein riesengroßer Spoiler da hinten. Da sieht jeder Porsche GT3 RS alt dagegen aus und guck mal, da hinten dann auch die ganze Technik nochmal für ja, das Wunderwerk, was jetzt gleich passieren wird. Ich bin sehr gespannt, wie gut das klappen wird. Und jetzt werfen wir noch einen Blick hier rein. In der Mitte ist so eine kleine Schaltzentrale, die werden wir uns gleich jetzt bei der Fahrt noch mal etwas genauer angucken. Überrollbügel und natürlich auch 2 ja, Sportsitze. Ich habe ein bisschen Angst, aber es wird gut. Okay, wir fahren jetzt Supra und wir driften autonom und ich bin total gespannt, wie das jetzt funktionieren wird. Es wird auf jeden Fall laut, seid gespannt. Ja, ich bin auch zu klein, ich sehe gar nicht so viel hier raus, aber guck mal, da vorne ist die Straße und ich glaube, gleich geht die Show los. Okay, das ist echt krass futuristisch hier.
Ja, ja.
Also die Bremse, die Lenkung, die funktionieren getrennt und die startet er jetzt mal und ja, es sieht auf jeden Fall interessant aus und sehr viel Computer, sehr viel Technik. Ich habe keine Ahnung davon, aber da vorne sehen wir den Track und da werden wir wahrscheinlich gleich driften. Is this our track over there?
Yeah,
Will we...
track. So
Okay.
we'll go straight forward and then we'll zigzag back.
Don't make mistakes.
Okay, so perfect. If I can have you just hold that.
Yes,
Anyway, perfect.
I keep it.
Cool. And then, yeah, so we'll go autonomous by flicking these 3 switches, so 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
After that, the car is driving itself.
Okay, wow.
I'm gonna keep my hand here.
Okay.
It's the software stuff.
Yeah.
This is just in case something happens.
Okay.
I'll take over.
And if not, I make this. It also helps, right? Just kidding, just kidding, don't worry.
You just hold on. You just hold on.
Okay.
I'll take over. And yeah, it's a research vehicle, so you know, it's very safe, but
Yeah.
it's not 100%.
Sure.
100% good, so there is a possibility that we hit it, but that will put the engine to idle, and we'll just come to a stop, and it'll be totally fine.
Great.
So you have nothing to worry about.
I trust you.
Good. Well, yeah.
An dieser Stelle wollte ich nur kurz sagen, danke, dass ihr zugeschaut habt.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Here we go.
Oh, lecco mio. Boah. Okay. Das Auto schaltet von alleine.
Yeah, that's the test.
Yeah, it is.
It's fun, right?
Can we make a second round?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Perfect. Ich mache jetzt noch eine zweite Runde und dann gibt es ein Fazit.
So, hey there, looks some kind of Hollywood interview scene, but that's perfect. We did a lot of driving today, and we were, for being honest, really impressed by the Supra and the LX500, LC500. But the thing we were asking ourselves was, how did it work?
Right. Well, let me turn it over to Avinash, who is the division leader. So, Avinash, how does it work?
Yeah, great question. So one of the key things that we try to do is basically understand what are the best drivers in the world thinking when they're performing those kinds of maneuvers, and then learn about that, and then actually try to teach and encode that principles in our AI. So our AI is based on something called model predictive control for the controller. Yeah. And what it does is it allows us to basically build a model of the environment, much like a human expert driver would. And we use that to project forward in time, the model, and then we kind of, based on that, try to optimize to get the best outputs depending on the particular scenario. So for drifting, we are optimizing to get sideways and make sure that we're doing these drift circuits. And when we're on the track, we're optimizing for things like staying in the lane and avoiding obstacles and trying to minimize time if we're trying to go fast. And so the key model there is the same, but the objective function is different, which is very similar to an expert driver. An expert driver generally has a very similar model of the car, but depending on what they're trying to do, the objective might be different. And so that's kind of how we encode it into our AI.
So what do you think? Are you better than human drivers or worse?
It's a great question. So I should say from the get-go, our goal is not to beat human drivers. It's really to work together. But we do tend to benchmark ourselves to just see if we're capturing that expert level skills. And right now, it's sort of a toss-up. Depending on the race and on the event, sometimes we win by a little bit, sometimes the expert human wins by a little bit. And so the reality for us, our takeaway, is that we're good enough. We're very close to an expert. And so to answer your question more directly, it depends on the event. Sometimes we win, sometimes they win. Yeah.
Okay. And to make it really clear, our AI system doesn't copy what a human driver does from a demonstration. Instead, we learn from the demonstrations and try to figure out what are the principles inside of the human driver's mind, and then we engineer a system that uses those same principles.
How long did you develop that system that you came from developing to the point that the car is autonomous drifting?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would like to give sort of a historic context here. So like a lot of the research at TRI, we do a lot of high-risk, high-reward research, and we work very closely with our university partners on doing this. And so this work actually was a collaboration between us and the Dynamic Design Lab at Stanford University. They've been working on it since about 2013. TRI came into the picture in about 16, 17 timeframe, and we've been working on it together, taking it from a much more research and academic setting into our sort of more advanced development research setting. And the car that you sat in today, Keisuke, that was built for us in about end of 2019. We fitted all our automated equipment into it, the computers, tested all of that sometime towards mid to end 2020. And we did our first drift in that car autonomously end of 2020. And so that's roughly the time frame. And since then, we've added more and more capability to that.
Maybe it sounds stupid, but why did you do it?
Oh, yeah. Great.
So, because there may be a lot of people which are asking themselves at home.
So let me
Please.
sort of start. So, you know, the first drive that we have, the first motivation, is to make cars safer.
Yeah.
And when you're drifting, you have a much wider possible envelope of control than when you're keeping traction on the wheels. And so if you can avoid a crash, if you can avoid injuring another person or killing another person by drifting, that would be an incredible thing. Now, also, it's fun. And so as a secondary motivation that we have, we think that we can make driving both more safe and more fun. And then the third, which you know you're learning about now, is we think that we can help teach people to be better drivers.
Yeah. I know you already told us before, but I love the story. I love the story, not the.
Of course.
But there was, there was one point in your life which motivates you to maybe change something. Maybe you can tell it because I really like it.
Sure. So you know, I was 9 years old.
Yeah.
It was in 1970, and unfortunately, even though I was so young, I witnessed the crash and the death of a classmate of mine. Which was when a car struck his bicycle, and he was right in front of me. And that was, you know, incredibly disturbing. And not only because of the loss of my classmate's life, but also the driver, who was innocent, did not expect that suddenly this bicycle would be in front of him in the car. And we have to think about that for almost all car crashes, that sometimes there's multiple people actually whose lives are affected. And of course, everyone who loves those people, their lives are also very negatively affected. So I think when we look at the statistics, they're bad enough, but then you have to multiply them by a number because actually the amount of sort of terrible harm that they do is so great. So that became this kind of motivating desire for me. What's really interesting is that I think that we can make systems very soon that will be able to prevent these kinds of crashes, not in all cases, but in most cases.
Yeah, but speaking about technique now, that kind of accident would probably happen again, right?
I am not sure. So I don't remember it well enough to know exactly what the distance was, but I know that there were 2 lanes traveling for each direction. And in my memory, again, I was only 9 years old. I think the other lane was clear. So I believe that probably, as you experienced in our test car, our system right now, if it had been existing in 1970 and fielded in a car, could probably have avoided that crash.
What do you think? Human reactions, humans' ability to drive, maybe they have, fences, let's say. And what do you think, in which manners are machines better than humans, or could be, or can be, or maybe in future can be better?
So I will start, but then I would like you to add on. What is so interesting is that people and machines have complementary skills. Yeah. Machines have faster reaction times, but machines are not very good at judging human beings in terms of predicting what they will do in the future. And so I think that this kind of complementarity of strengths can actually lead to wonderful system design where we have these 2 systems kind of working synergistically, each one doing what the other one is weak at, so that the net result is both of them higher.
Yeah, this is the thing that people have been studying actually for a long time. You can find papers from 50 years ago of people trying to figure out what is the thing that a machine is better at and a person. I think I totally agree with Gail. A machine is usually very repeatable. It's able to calculate and make sure it's running. It's doing the same thing each time. I think actually one of the things that we as people are really good at is generalized learning, which is the ability to actually, let's say you drove here in the United States, and then you went to another country where the driving is on the other side of the road, you could adapt to that very quickly. And I think that's really an example of where a person or a human really shines, is our ability to take a learning from one context and move it to another context. And I think this is a way that if we have a good relationship between the vehicle and the driver, maybe there's a way that we can, exactly like Gil said, complementary, make this a thing where the machine gets the benefit of both. Yeah.
Okay. pretty understandable. One last question.
Yeah.
I'm from Europe. So in Europe we have Formula One. Probably you also look Formula One, maybe not.
Love Formula One.
Yeah. But you have NASCAR. NASCAR is more
we have
popular.
NASCAR as well. Yeah.
What do you think? Is NASCAR or Formula One? Will maybe there's one point in the future where they will drive without drivers, maybe autonomous?
Why don't you start this one and then I'll
Yeah. So I'll say a few things. One is, I think for me, one of the appeals of Formula One is this idea of a person in there trying to beat another person.
Yeah.
And so I really like that. And so I think it's not just about trying to beat a human and be better, but it's sort of that engagement that you get when you see like this competition with other people in there. I will just say that we actually do work with TRD, Toyota Racing Development, which works on our NASCAR program. We also work now with TGRE, which is Toyota Gazoo Racing Europe, which works on our World Endurance Cross, so like things like Le Mans. And we work very closely with those teams to kind of bring the benefits of our technology to the race teams. Now, we're not trying to make humans automated, but we're trying to find ways in which this AI, for example, could help you set up the car better, could help a professional driver learn what's a better line and analyze their data. So that's the angle that we're kind of taking at the moment. Yeah.
And I would add that, the history of technology and sports working together actually goes back a very, very long way. And so, of course, people can compete against each other just by running if they wish to. But the very act of getting in a car and having the competition between cars is the car is an amplifier of the physical ability of the human beings. And now we're, judging the people's skills back and forth. It may be, and I don't know, it's hard to predict the future, that in the future, these kind of low-level control skills, which is currently where a lot of the competition happens, that those will be kind of like cars versus running. They will be mechanized also. But I think the role of human judgment, what people are really, really good at, of understanding what's going on in the mind of the competitor, how to strategically decide who goes in front of whom and how to run the race, that will kind of continue to be an area for human competition.
Last question, promise.
Please, okay.
When I have two professionals like you, a lot of people maybe now at home think about in which point, maybe which date in the future it will be possible that cars on the streets drive autonomous.
So we're already seeing some of this now. There are already in cities at relatively low speeds from a number of different companies, cars that drive autonomously. We ourselves have a system called Teammate, which allows for certain of our cars for there to be significant amount of autonomous operation. So it's happening, but it's happening in stages. Our technical word for this is operational design domain. And so within cities at slow speeds, it's absolutely possible and happening now. At higher speeds on the highway, for instance, I think that will happen next with trucks that are doing logistics, operating autonomously. That will require a lot of changes in the laws for the hours that a trucker is allowed to kind of be in the car, et cetera. And then finally, the third stage will be at medium speed. Turns out that's the hardest because you may have pedestrians and bicyclists and other cars, but it's difficult to understand, exactly what will happen. And then the final one, I think, will be for personally owned vehicles, because they're a personally owned vehicle typically used around 4 or 5% of the time. 95% of the time, the vehicle isn't doing anything. It's just parked. And so hard to justify the extra cost of the hardware and so forth. So that will probably be the last one that happens.
And, just to add to that, if you remember from my talk, I think exactly like Gil said, that they exist right now in sort of specific operational design domains. The opportunity that we see at TRI is the fact that to scale that along all those steps that Gil mentioned, we think is going to take a long time. And so how do we create value and safety for people in between when these vehicles or this operation is not going to be available to them yet?
Cool. Was für ein Tag, was für eine coole Erfahrung. Vielen lieben Dank Toyota und Lexus, dass ihr uns das hier möglich gemacht habt und ihr konntet ja jetzt auch ein bisschen mit dabei sein. Toyota möchte mit dieser Technologie eben quasi beim Mond anfangen. Ne? Also wenn man ein Auto performancemäßig autonom driften lassen kann oder eben auf der Rennstrecke mit fast 100 Miles per Hour fahren lassen kann mit Hindernissen, dann hat man es geschafft, diese Technologie, wenn sie da oben ist, auch eben auf die Straße zu bringen. Sehr viel Spaß hat es gemacht, aber es geht dabei natürlich auch um Sicherheit. Und der Gründer von TAI hat mit 9 Jahren einen guten Freund von sich verloren bei einem Unfall und hat sich deswegen zur Aufgabe gemacht, eben Assistenzsysteme zu bauen und vom teilautonomen Fahren Level 2, Level 3 eben bis Level 4 oder auch Level 5 gehen zu können. Und ich finde, dass das heute wirklich sehr beeindruckend war. Was ihr gerne machen könnt, ist hier mal in die Kommentare schreiben, wie ihr das so fandet. War ja jetzt mal ein bisschen anderes Video und den Kanal abonnieren. Hier gibt es nämlich jeden Tag um 17 Uhr ein Video von Jan oder auch von mir. Hier seid ihr bestens informiert. Dann hoffe ich, dass wir uns morgen wiedersehen. Bis dann, Freunde.